At Lumiere, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, the night hummed with quiet power. Crystal light dripped from chandeliers, and every whisper carried the weight of money. Near the center table sat Richard Morrison, a tech billionaire who mistook cruelty for confidence. When 19-year-old Zoe Taylor approached with her notepad, he leaned back, smirking. "I bet $500,000 this girl can't say one sentence in Chinese." Laughter rippled through the room. "Come on, sweetheart," he said, snapping his fingers. "What's 2 plus 2? The question wasn't math. It was humiliation. Zoe froze for a heartbeat, then lifted her eyes to meet his. Shaken. Around them, the restaurant fell silent, phones half-raised, breath caught between disbelief and anticipation. In that pause, power shifted. So quietly no one realized the story had already changed. Like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales, for stories that remind us how grace turns humiliation into history. Under the glass chandeliers of Lumiere, the tension thickened like the city's winter air. Every fork paused midair, every whisper faded, and somewhere between the flicker of candlelight and disbelief, the story began to shift. Zoe stood perfectly still, the tray balanced in her hand, the weight of $500,000 and a room full of silent judgment pressing on her shoulders. Morrison leaned back in his chair, crossing one leg over the other, a picture of smug wealth. "Go on, sweetheart," he said. "Say something impressive." His voice carried, sharp as glass. The 3 Chinese executives beside him looked down, ashamed but silent. Zoe set the tray down carefully. Her breath was steady. She didn't raise her voice, but when she finally spoke, it carried like a calm wave cutting through arrogance. "Gentlemen," she began softly, in perfect Mandarin. The sound turned every head. "Your concerns about quantum algorithm scalability are correct, but your encryption method leaves 3 major vulnerabilities." Her words flowed with the ease of someone who lived in 2 worlds at once, the rhythm of language and the logic of science. The Chinese executives froze. One whispered, "She's speaking Beijing Standard Mandarin." The other dropped his pen. Morrison blinked, trying to process what he was hearing. Zoe continued, shifting effortlessly between dialects, explaining technical concepts with precision. Every word dismantled his bet, every sentence stripped away the smirk that had anchored his ego. Morrison's jaw twitched. "Who coached you?" he demanded, voice rising. "You memorized a script, didn't you?" Zoe met his eyes. "No, sir. I read your contract. It's riddled with translation errors. If you sign it as is, you'll lose international patent rights within 6 months." The room gasped. One of the Chinese partners nodded slowly. "She's right," he murmured. "Completely right." Cameras lifted, phones recorded. Morrison's fingers fumbled with his phone, trying to turn off the recording he'd started to humiliate her. Now it was his humiliation streaming live. He stood abruptly, knocking over his chair. "You think this makes you special?" he snapped. "You're still a waitress." Zoe didn't flinch. "For now," she said quietly. That night the video went viral. #GeniusWaitress flooded social media across Canada and beyond. News anchors replayed her calm defiance beside the billionaire's red face. At first, Zoe tried to ignore the noise. She still had shifts to cover, bills to pay, a sick mother at home, and a little brother whose tuition depended on her tips. But with fame came shadows. A week later, her manager cornered her in the pantry. "Zoe," he said nervously, "we've had complaints. You're becoming a distraction." He avoided her eyes. "Morrison's company books half our corporate events. He's threatening to pull out." Zoe froze. "So you're firing me because I spoke Mandarin? Because you embarrassed a man who thinks he owns this city," he muttered. The next morning, she was gone from Lumiere's roster. No notice, no severance, no apology. Just a silence that hurt more than any insult. Morrison's network had worked faster than any rumor. Her tutoring clients cancelled. Her freelance translation contracts vanished. One message read simply, We don't want to be dragged into controversy. Bills stacked like unspoken accusations. Her mother's voice on the phone was gentle, tired. Maybe just lie low, honey. People forget. But Zoe didn't want to be forgotten. She had built her world out of persistence, not privilege. So she did what she always did, she worked. Days at a small diner in Chinatown, nights translating documents for pennies. One evening, while closing up the diner, she heard a familiar name on the TV. Morrison. He was on a talk show, smirking again, dismissing her as a viral stunt gone too far. He called her an attention-hungry dropout. Zoe felt something inside her shift. Not anger, focus. If he thought her silence meant defeat, he was wrong. She spent the next 3 months building what she dreamed of since MIT. A translation AI that didn't just translate words, but meaning. Her laptop sat beside trays of cold tea and stacks of notebooks filled with hand-sketched algorithms. She trained the model on every accent she'd ever heard at Lumiere. Mandarin, Arabic, Cree, French Canadian, language after language, building bridges Morrison could never understand. By spring, her prototype was ready. She named it Ecolingua, a symbol of how voices deserve to echo equally. With borrowed money and sleepless nights, she entered it into a tech startup competition in Toronto. When the judges arrived, one of them froze. Richard Morrison. His company sponsored the event. Zoe's pulse quickened, but she didn't back down. On stage, under harsh fluorescent light, she presented her demo. The software translated emotional nuance across 5 languages in real time. The audience gasped when it rendered an indigenous elder's speech into French and Mandarin simultaneously, preserving tone and respect. Morrison watched, pale, realizing too late that this was her revenge. When the judges announced the winner, the applause thundered. Zoe stood center stage, tears welling, her voice steady. "This isn't about me," she said. "It's about every young person told they don't belong in rooms like this." Within weeks, investors flooded her inbox. Journalists called her Canada's young linguistic visionary. Morrison tried to spin the narrative, claiming he'd discovered her. But the internet remembered. Screenshots of his bet resurfaced. Hashtags exploded again. Hashtag 500,000 reasons. Soon, regulators began reviewing his company's contracts. The same arrogance that led him to humiliate Zoe had left trails. Underpaid interns, fake diversity campaigns, and a leaked email mocking foreign partners. Within a month, sponsors withdrew, board members resigned, and his empire started to crack. One rainy evening, Zoe received a message request from Morrison himself. "Can we meet?" Against every instinct, she agreed. Because closure isn't revenge. It's justice. He was waiting in a half-empty cafe, no cameras, no entourage. His suit looked more expensive than his expression. "You destroyed me," he said, not as accusation but admission. Zoe stirred her coffee. "No, Richard. You did that the moment you thought respect was optional." He sighed. "You won. What do you want?" She looked out the window at the city lights reflecting off puddles. "I want you to fund scholarships for underprivileged language students across Canada. 50 of them. Every year. Forever." He blinked, caught off guard. "That'll cost millions." "500,000 was your bet," she said evenly. "Consider this redemption." The next morning, headline spread. Disgraced tech CEO funds national scholarship after viral incident. Morrison became the symbol of a lesson too costly to ignore. Months later, Zoe walked back into Lumiere, not as a server but as a guest of honor. The same chandeliers still glittered, but the whispers carried awe, not mockery. Her AI company, now global, partnered with universities, governments, and hospitals. Ecolingua had become the backbone of Canada's multilingual future. When she passed the table where Morrison once sat, she paused. The new manager greeted her with respect. "Miss Taylor, it's an honor." She smiled, humble but unbroken. "It's Zoe." Across the city, young servers watched her story unfold and dared to speak up the next time someone looked down on them. Across the world, women of color saw a reflection of their own silenced strength turning into power. And Richard Morrison. His name became a cautionary tale in business schools, a reminder that arrogance ages fast, but respect lasts forever. As the lights of Montreal and Toronto blinked across the night sky, Zoe's voice echoed through interviews and classrooms, her message clear. Genius doesn't belong to privilege, it belongs to perseverance. The final shot lingered on her standing by the cafe window, city lights reflecting in her eyes. Proof that sometimes justice doesn't shout. It speaks fluently, in every language the heart understands. The first snow of December drifted past the glass towers of Toronto as Zoe walked home, coat buttoned high, breath fading into the cold. The city no longer felt like the place that once tried to silence her. Every step echoed the truth she had learned. The real victory was never about wealth or headlines, but about refusing to let arrogance define your worth. She stopped at a bookstore window where a child practiced French with his mother, their laughter bright against the frost. That sound, connection, was what she'd been building all along. Somewhere, a new story was already beginning. Another voice, once dismissed, learning to rise. If this story moved you, show your support. Hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales for more stories that remind us how courage and truth can change everything.